Welcome to Make Something with me, David Picciuto, and today I'm going to show you how to make this beautiful serving tray. This is one of the projects in my new book. Check it. Today's video is brought to you by Squarespace. Something that I have not talked about before is if you have a Squarespace site, you can have a members only section. This is a gated members only section of your website that allows you to generate extra revenue or just share information with your community. A lot of us woodworkers, makers, and crafters like to sell the things that we make. You can do that with your Squarespace site. You can also have point of sale purchases. So let's say you're at a craft show or you're out and about and you sell something, you can actually take that order through your phone and it goes right through your Squarespace site. That's a really cool feature. Squarespace sites are optimized for mobile. That means your website is going to look great on your computer, tablet, or phone. You can even buy your domain name directly through Squarespace, so all of your stuff is in one place. So visit squarespace.com, and when you're ready to launch, visit squarespace.com/makesomething for 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thank you, Squarespace, for sponsoring today's video. Now let me show you how I made the serving tray. We are going to make this serving tray out of my new book. We'll talk about this more later. I've got some English walnut that I've recently acquired. The first thing I need to do is head on over to the table saw and cut some strips. So we're basically making the frame for this serving tray, and we're going to use mitered corners. I have my blade set to 45 degrees, and I'm going to cut the two long sides and the two short sides. And I've got my curve cut in the fence here, and so I can line that up with that. I also have a stop here, so when I go to do my second piece, I can get two equal lengths. We have all four pieces cut and we have the miters on there. So now I'm going to cut a groove down the center of each one of them. I have a blade set to 3/8 of an inch high. These little, what are these called, Dan? Gauge blocks. You don't even have to use a tape measure. You just stick that up against the blade. You do your thing. These are very, very handy for quick setups. It needs to be down the middle. It doesn't have to be precisely exactly in the middle. Just get as close as you can, and just in case you don't get exactly down the middle, mark the tops of all your pieces. So now I'm going to run that groove. This groove is going to hold the plywood bottom. So I have some plywood that is going to be used as the base for this. This is 1/8 inch plywood. I'm going to cut it oversized, and we're going to sneak up on the correct fit. So I throw that plywood in there, and as you can see, it doesn't close up. So I'm just going to nibble away. It doesn't have to be a perfect fit. It can be slightly smaller than the inside. You'll never know and you'll never see it. That all fits together. Now it is time to cut the handles. So I'm going to measure a 1/2 inch in on the small pieces. This is going to be the handle part, so we're going to remove this material, and I'm just going to use a coin to draw the roundovers on there. I've got that all sanded smooth, and since these are going to be the handles of the tray, I want to round over this edge, and I'm going to do that here at the router. I got that nice round over on there. It feels good on the hands. So now it is time to glue this all together. I'm just going to put glue in the miters. I don't even need any glue in the groove. That panel can just float in there. And then we'll clamp that all together. I'm just going to use tape. I find tape to be one of the easiest ways. You don't get a lot of clamping pressure, but it's also not necessary. We're going to reinforce these joints, after the glue dries. So now that that is glued up, we'll let that sit and dry for an hour or so, and then we'll come back and we'll put splines in those corners to reinforce that. It's not a very strong joint because that's end grain to end grain. So we're gonna cut splines here at the table saw. This is my spline jig. I've got a video on making the spline jig. So now we need to cut the splines for that over here on the bandsaw. So I'm just going to draw a line on here. That's a little bit thicker than we need, but we can sand down to the exact thickness. You can also do this at the table saw, and you can nail that thickness down at the table saw, and then you wouldn't have to sand this down. And there we go. A little bit of glue, or a lot of it. Spread that on there. If you are wondering why I would use the combination of cherry and English walnut, is because I need a dowel for a later step, and the only 1/2-inch dowel that I had was cherry. I'm lazy, didn't feel like going to the store. So I'm going to use the cherry dowel and then the cherry splines to match. I think normally I would use something a little bit darker for more contrast, but I could be pleasantly surprised. Typically, I take the tape off before doing this. I just wanted to experiment and see what happens if I take it off now. Oh yeah, that cleans up. I meant to do that on purpose. Cleans up my glue joints. That'll be easier to sand away. I went ahead and cut the 4 legs on the table saw, and again I'm going to take a coin and draw a little round over on the end of each one of these. So now I'm going to drill a 1/2-inch hole on all 4 legs. This is going to hold a support dowel, which will make more sense here in a little bit. So I've got some gaps I need to fill, and one quick way to do that is put a little bit of CA glue in there. Come on. And then a little bit of sawdust from the same species. And you'll never know. On the miters, sometimes you can just put glue in there and then take a screwdriver and just kind of round that over, and it will close the gap. Got a little gap there. And just burnish that in there. So now we have our 4 legs, and they're going to go in here like so. And I need a dowel rod to go in between here to sturdy everything up. So my hole is that deep, so then I make that line on there. This hole is that deep, so then I make that line on there. And then I can take my dowel rod to get the approximate length, and right there. This would be the top of the tray, and then down here we're going to have the two legs that are going to swing out like so. I got these from Home Depot. These are connecting bolts. These are probably too long, but we can cut them to length, and that will allow this mechanical movement for the legs. So I need to drill a hole here near the rounded edge, and then the same thing with the other side. And then we need to drill into here. I have my little tri-square combination square thing right here. It was there the whole time. So these measurements are all in the book. Just mark that there. Mark that there. The size hole is really going to be determined by the connecting bolts that you have. Through the other side, and then you tighten that up with some Allen wrenches. My bolt is too long, and that is a good thing because you want to cut it to the exact length so you can tighten it down to get your pivot. So, and then we're gonna sand a little on there. And then we'll check our fit, and that is perfect. You snug that up. If you cut it too short, you might have to use a little bit of thread lock. I would imagine like plumber's tape would also work to lock those two in there. And so I got to do one more over here. All right, so the stiffness of that is going to be determined by the length and how much you're able to tighten that. Might put a little wax on there just to loosen that up a little bit. Round over the legs at the bottom there and put some finish on there. Should have rounded those over earlier. I don't know if that's in the book or not. We're using this junk. It's food safe. It's easy to apply. It's impossible to mess up, and it's stupid expensive. I'm not into the cherry English walnut. I'm gonna post my disgust down below in the comments. This is a technique I see on the... I don't know if you know how difficult it is to film this with hot, fresh, tasty food right in front of me. But I assure you, I am going to devour this as soon as I hit stop. This project comes from my new book. This is Make Your Own Kitchen Tools. Got to make sure there's no nip slips, if you know what I'm saying. Make Your Own Kitchen Tools. There's a whole bunch of projects in here that's all based around the kitchen. This is my third book. My first book was the new bandsaw box book. Then we had the cutting board book, and then the Make Your Own Kitchen Tools book. I'll have a link to this down below in the description. On my website, I sell signed copies at the listed price. If you are on a budget and want to get it a little bit cheaper, head on over to Amazon. I'll have a link to that as well. It just won't be signed, but it'll save you a few bucks. I gotta be honest with you, the English walnut and the cherry do not work together. It is a terrible combination. They don't go well together. It is what it is. I used what I had. It saved me a trip going to the store. Right now, I'm trying to limit my trips until everything gets back to normal. Thank you, Squarespace, for sponsoring today's video. We will see you in a few days with a brand new project. As always, be safe, have fun, stay passionate, and make something. Let's see if I cook these yolks right. Ah, perfect! Perfect. Don't forget to subscribe to my new cooking channel.